having us.
Yeah, man. So glad to have you guys here. It really is a pleasure. Tell us about the band Electris. Tell us about it.
So, Electris really started, we met at guitar class with our teacher, Richard Allan Shepard.
Allan Shepard.
Allan Shepard.
What kind of teacher is he?
Oh, he's a great teacher. He's a musician as well, and he does production too. So he produces music, and he also writes his own songs. So once once I started learning guitar, he invited us to a studio. He's just like, hey, if you want to record any songs you have, you're more than welcome to come. And
Wow.
Well, yeah, I went over to his studio, and I was just like, well, I have all these songs, but I'm not really good at guitar or playing. So I was just like, well, who do I know that's like really good? And Kelly was the first person I thought of. I'm like, oh, we gotta get in on this.
Is Allan in New York?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Brooklyn based.
Brooklyn based.
Mm-hmm.
All right. When did that start? When did you start working with Allan? When did you meet Kelly? And when did you guys say, hey, let's get together and write songs?
So I started going to the guitar class. I met Richard Shepard. I met him at around 2015, 2014, somewhere around there. Started taking guitar classes with him. Eventually, like a year into the class, Kelly started taking classes with him too to hone his skills as a bassist. And I was gonna go to, I went away to college like around 2016, and we did like a final show, and that's where my guitar teacher, he was just like, hey, if you have some songs, we could record it in my studio.
Let's give him a plug. Does he have a studio name, or is it called the Allan Shepard Studio? Or
So he's actually gonna be in the video that, the little videos that we had.
Okay.
Sound, and it's just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know how the guitar works. I've just seen it, like people playing it, but I don't know how to make it do sounds.
Right.
But he said it was easier because it is easier on the fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually we worked up to the acoustic guitar, which completely murdered my fingers at first.
Uh-huh.
The calluses and all that. It's a heavy struggle doing that.
Yeah. Hey, Kelly, how about you? So Kathy starts, and she's in the studio and improving her guitar playing, and then you also come there.
How do you remember it, Kelly?
How do I remember it? This is still on going to the studio, like how we met. Okay, So while Kathy was still at the studio around like 2015, I came in like around a year later, like around 2016, and it was actually, I was never supposed to go to the door at all, never. So how we met was a happy accident. I was supposed to go to this program called like Urban Arts Partnership, whatever, to like learn how to do like music producing. But it ended up at this place called The Door. That's where we met up. And
Brooklyn, Queens.
This was in Manhattan.
Manhattan.
Yeah.
The Door.
The Door. It's like past Soho, isn't it?
Yeah, it's around Spring Street. It's a youth center, actually.
Yeah.
I accidentally showed up at the door too, but that's another story.
I make it over to I asked them like, oh, you know, is the Urban Arts Partnership around here somewhere? And they said they work with them, but then they were just like, oh, just come upstairs and we have music, because I asked if they did music or whatever. So there was a music part. I came in and but I came in because it was weird, because it wasn't really Kathy that I met, but it was like rather a friend that we used to play with. So it was her. She I looked through the door and I saw that there was like a band playing. So I got so excited. So I was just like, hey, like can I jump in and like play with you guys? You know, and then she would ask, oh, do you know how to play the bass? But little did she know I was great at it. So I came in, they heard my skills, and then we were playing a little, and that's when Kathy came in. And it was just like this whole band. I was just like, what is going on? Because it was also a thing for me. It was my first band as well. So I never played with a band previously, but like we all played, and then like the chemistry was instantly there. You know, so that's a little bit of the story of like how we met.
Right.
So that's how I remembered it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my skills was already up to par with previous experience or whatever, like, you know, just practicing.
I like to know that. I mean, if both of you could tell me, like, when did you pick up an instrument first? Did someone hand it to you? Did you say, I want to try it? And how did you first start playing?
How I first started playing?
Yeah.
How I first started was, I was 14 when I first started. I was still, and how do I say? I was living in Florida around that time, and my brother first had his guitar like right at the pawn shop. So I was just like, man, I really want a guitar too. So my mom ended up telling me, you know, you're gonna get a guitar soon. But then that time eventually
your brother got one from the pawn shop?
He got one from a pawn shop. Yeah, it
cool, man.
Yeah, I just like to mention it because like it leads on to like how I got my guitar as well. So that's when so the time eventually came around, and then that's when I got my guitar. I got mine at Guitar Center. So my guitar was like, it was a BC Rich Kerry King Beast V. It looks really devilish. So I started playing that. Yeah, that's pretty much how I got the guitar.
Right. How about you, Kathy?
Well, for me, it started off a little bit different. I guess my musical journey overall started when I was younger as well. I started writing songs around probably 15, 16, around there. I was really into like Queen and classic rock, Zeppelin, Bowie. I was just like, man, what they're doing is so cool. And I remember like I want to do something that's just like, I like singing, you know, I like singing Queen songs. I would like harmonize with Freddie, even though he had all those harmonies going on in his songs. I was still like harmonizing when he was singing alone, just, you know, just hearing my voice and things. And eventually I got into songwriting. It was due to an interview by Janis Joplin, where they were asking her like, oh, how did you start, you know, writing your music? And she said something along the lines of like, well, I wouldn't call it writing music, because she was like not technical about the music either. But the way she saw it, she's like, I just started making up songs. And when she said that, that just resonated with me, because writing music, I just felt like, you know, music notes and all this language I don't know. But when she said making up songs, I'm like, that's brilliant. And that just like opened the door for me for songwriting. I started like just doing vocal melodies and like singing things over and over and over. Eventually, I had my first band with some high school friends from middle school and whatnot. They were just like, oh, you know, we want to do some music and stuff. My buddy Bo, he heard me singing for the first time I ever sang in front of everybody. He's just like, oh, dude, we need to start a band. I'm like, oh my God, really? You know? And we got another friend of ours, Kyle, and the three of us, we were just, you know, two guitars, and I just sang and played a little bit of keyboard, since I was pretty good at it. Not the best, but, you know, I could play a little bit. And yeah, we were together for a while. Eventually, it wasn't really going anywhere, so, you know, we were just a bunch of kids going to the park, going to Guitar Center and just playing, you know, making up songs. And
I think quite a few people do their biggest shows in Guitar Center.
Yeah. I mean, it's so cool, Guitar Center. You just go in and, you know, play for hours and they're like, whatever, you know? Yeah. So eventually when I left the band, I had a little bit more understanding of like guitar. I'm just like, well, I don't have a band, and I don't know how to play any instruments, keyboard, really, it's not my thing. So I'm like, well, let me learn how to play guitar, because I want to do guitar-based music. So that's where the door kind of came into play, where I went to the door to look for housing, because I was just like, I want to move out my house, so as rebellious little teenager. And they were like giving me a guide of the youth center and all that, and they were like, oh yeah, we do music, there's a guitar teacher Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think it was. And I'm like, oh, interesting, okay. So I think I was there like on Tuesday or Thursday, so I ended up like just going there, and Shepard was there, and he's like, oh, you want to do guitar? I'm like, yeah. So that's where like we met, and from then on I was just there. I met another friend of mine there too. We both just started playing guitar, and eventually that led into meeting Kelly and making the album.
It's like a twin right there.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of a secret. Well, it was and it wasn't. Because when I was younger, I would go to church and I would like sing at the end of the service, I would just run up to the mic and just start singing whatever. I was like, 3, 4, something, just singing gibberish. But they didn't think much of it. They're just like, oh, she likes to sing. That's cool. When I got older and I really started thinking about taking music seriously and making it a career, or if you want to call it a career, I didn't tell them, and I was just like, I just kind of want to keep this to myself because I don't know where it's going. So even when I started learning guitar at the youth center, my guitar teacher, Richard, he was actually nice enough to lend me a guitar so I could take home and actually, practice even more. He saw me there like during all the classes, and he was just like, she's serious about the business. So I'm just like, well, yeah. And he's like, here, have this guitar, take it home. So I was just at home, and when it was like quiet or when nobody was at home, I would like, start playing guitar really low. It was just kind of like my own little secret. Eventually my dad was like, yeah, I heard you playing guitar. I'm like, oh, like I thought I was being, sneaky, but yeah, they were totally like supportive. They're like, if this is what you want to do, do it. It might go somewhere, it might not. They were super supportive of it. He even offered to buy me a guitar, which I declined because I was just too proud, and I was just like, no, if I'm gonna get my own guitar, I'm gonna buy it.
Wow.
Which I did.
So. And I like asking, right-handed guitar, left-handed guitar?
Oh, right-handed. I tried left-handed because it looked cooler. No, it did not work out. I was just like, not my thing.
Kelly, how about you?
Well, similar to Kathy, my music interest, it started off way like when I was younger, like probably, I would like to say between 6 and 7 or 8, somewhere around there. Like MTV would pop up, and it would be all these punk rock music, since it was like kind of late 2000s. So punk pop was like still dying a little bit, and not still dying, but and I would pop up these like, how these I don't know how to, I call them game cases. It's like video game disc cases. I would pop up those, or like I pop up some notebooks, you know. And then I grab some pencils and then like start like hitting them alongside with like with the music. So I was always so loud in the house. So I guess my mom and my dad, they probably knew something. But it was never a secret. Like my mom always knew that I was so into music. So yeah, I was always so loud. She would always make these comments, like even on the streets, like I would like yell like to the top of my lungs. I was just like, I don't know, that's something, you know?
Right. I always like to ask this. So you guys, am I correct? You met at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in New York City. Can you remember like the first time you met or saw each other or the group of people? Because like those first moments are always pretty interesting.
Man, the first moment.
You want me to take this one from my perspective?
Like
the first time we saw each other, or at least I saw you.
You know, talked or something.
Yeah. So I remember, I think we were like practicing for something. We already had like a little band going on at the youth center. We were called the Curls because we all had curly hair. And
okay,
that's
the curl?
the Curls.
Oh, the Curls. Okay.
Yeah, the Curls. Very 50s, you know. But we were called the Curls. It was me, the girl that started when I started the same time learning guitar with Shepard, and then we had another girl who was on bass. So we had already done like a couple of shows at the youth center. You know, they would have like, performing arts. So all the bands, dancers, you know, whatever they had going on there, they would all perform for a specific day, and they would have people come in and things like that. So we already had like experience like performing in front of people. So I think we were preparing for another performance that day, and I just remember I was just like messing with the guitar, doing whatever, and Kelly, like, he just came in. I'm just like, all right, this is just another guy who probably like saw a bunch of instruments. He's like, ooh, what are they doing? You know, we had a lot of people that would come in, and then when they realized like all the technicalities that went into like playing guitar and actually dedicating yourself to guitar, they would like never show up again. Because you know, guitar is not easy to learn.
No,
it's
right.
not.
it's not.
Right.
So I thought he was just gonna be one, you know, another one that was just like, oh, you know, looks cool. Then you're in there for one class, you're like, not my thing. Then I remember the girl, she was just like, oh, do you play guitar? Do you play bass? And he's like, yeah, a little bit. So we gave him the bass, and he just started, I don't know, he just started like on the bass, and I looked up from my guitar. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I'm just like, a Shepard on guitar. What is this? And it was him, and I was like, whoa. So he was just like playing on bass, and you know, obviously everybody was just like, oh, you play the bass so good, you know, and whatever. And eventually we had a break for like for dinner time, which they would give us like lunch and, you know, food and things like that. So once we like sat down, I'm like, Kelly or Guy, come over here. You gotta sit with us. I didn't even know his name. I'm like, Guy, you gotta come over here and sit with us. And I remember talking to him. I'm like, dude, you play bass so good, and you know, all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh, you're gonna be so good. You know what?
I take it, I can't assume it, right-handed player with guitar?
Yeah.
All right. Nice. And so that's how you guys met there?
Yeah, the first moment was a little similar to me because, you know, Kathy walked in, I was just like, you know, this is just some girl with glasses. But then when she started singing, I was just like, oh, she can sing.
Right.
And it was this particular song that made me remember how the way you sing. It was Led Zeppelin, Dazed and Confused. Like, I don't know, it was just something about that moment. It made me, I don't know, especially how the way you sung it. It was something.
How about you, Kelly? Like, what kind of music influences were you starting off with?
Man, big thing for me, it was Green Day, Metallica. Like those are like my hero bands. And then a lot of punk stuff, like even with the subgenres of punk, like all the hardcore, the pop punk, I'm forgetting mine, but it was around those categories that influenced me, and
Yeah, and what about any live concerts that really influenced either one of you? And
that's a funny story because Kathy took me to my first concert.
oh wow!
Yeah, because I was just like, oh man, I really want to go to a concert. So Kathy was telling me about this band called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I'm just like, first off, that's a funny name, But I listened to this.
What is it?
King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
That's about the funniest name I've ever heard.
And they were like this funk psychedelic band. So I gave them a listen, and they were really dope. So I liked their sound. And it was a sold out concert too, so my luck. And how did it go? And since I didn't know how to buy any tickets, like I was telling her, I'll just go buy them at the door because like I thought that's how it worked. She was over here telling me, no, you got to go over there to the place and buy the ticket. So after that, I immediately went and got my ticket. First saw this show, awesome, nearly suffocated, but yeah, it was hot, it was sweating. But it was.
Where was that show?
Huh?
Where was it?
Oh, it was at the Webster Hall.
Yeah.
Before they closed down for renovations or something.
Right. Was a classic place to see shows.
Yeah.
I think it was the last show. Well, I don't want to say it was the last show before like they renovated, but I think a couple of months after, maybe even a couple of weeks after, they're like, well, we're closing down, so for renovations or whatever. And I'm like, wow, we missed it we didn't miss it, but we got it by a hair,
I bet, unless they take that building down, and I hope they don't, it'll come back as another club because it's not going to be condominiums. And it's already gone through at least 2 name changes. It was the Ritz like a long, long time ago, and then Webster Hall. So yeah, great place. That's like 11th Street in Manhattan between maybe 3rd Avenue and
somewhere around
something there.
By like Strands and all that, yeah.
Right. So when you guys jam out, where do you jam out, practice your songs? Is it the basement, the living room, the backyard, or one of the rehearsal studios?
Guitar Center.
The Guitar Center. Yeah, they do have those rooms off to the side, the bass room sometimes, and the acoustic guitar room.
And the acoustic guitar room, because before, they started like making little rooms that they have now where it's like, oh, you could rent it almost like a studio. Like I've seen them recently. It was before that. So what we would do, we would go to the acoustic room because that's where, the bass and guitar like could be together. Because the way they separated like the stores and Guitar Center was like, this area is just strictly for guitars and these amps are strictly for guitars. This area is strictly for bass guitars and these amps are strictly for bass amps. So unless we were like on the opposite end of the room and then we're trying to jam with each other, what made more sense was the acoustic room. Where we would practice and jam and all that, and it all took place at Guitar Center and the Youth Center, obviously.
Yeah, I appreciate Guitar Center a lot. They changed the name of the game when they came to New York, and pretty cool place the way they run things there. Most of the time, yeah.
Right. I mean, it was literally all we could afford. We didn't have any job, we didn't have any money, so it was just like, we got to go to the Youth Center. When they were closed, we got to go to the Guitar Center. Right. That was really the hustle that we had to do, if we wanted to record eventually.
Crystal sails down by the stream, wish me farewell, amongst bittersweet memories of an olden tale. At last the gods have found the reason to kill any man whom they